In terms of, how to fix the procurement system, it's really about having the individuals know what they do, share what they do, mentor those that are coming up through the pipeline, because procurement, folks transition, they, through attrition, people quit, people retire, people get sick. And so you want to make sure that the individuals that you have are cross-trained in the other areas so that it doesn't go to a screeching halt because one person is gone or one person is missing. So there's got to be some training that is available to many people in the organization, not just the people sitting in the procurement office. To the extent that you can use administrative assistants to do the, the 3 price checks and the verification or the validation through the buyers, perfect.
Alpha Day, it's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson, and welcome to another edition of the Innovate Guam Podcast where we explore all things innovation, technology, and improvement as they relate to the island of Guam. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Substack. New podcast episodes drop at the beginning of each week. You can also find my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every other Friday of the month. Today's episode is a special one because both of my guests have been on the Innovate Guam podcast before. But today, they are here together, not just as public servants, educators, or community leaders, but as a political team running for Governor and Lieutenant Governor of Guam. Frank Blas Jr. is the Speaker of the Guam Legislature, a longtime public servant, former Guam Police Department officer, former Homeland Security advisor, small business owner, author, and community advocate. Across his career, he has built a reputation around public safety, government accountability, emergency management, procurement reform, fiscal responsibility, and protecting Guam's families and institutions. Dr. Mary Okada is one of Guam's most consequential education and workforce development leaders. She served as the first female and longest serving president and CEO of the Guam Community College, where she helped modernize the institution, expand workforce pathways, strengthen fiscal stewardship, and align education with the real needs of Guam's economy. She has also served on the Guam Education Board and in numerous regional and national education leadership roles. Together, Speaker Blas and Dr. Okada are presenting themselves to the people of Guam as a team focused on leadership, execution, accountability, education, workforce development, public safety, and a stronger future for the island. So today's conversation is not just about politics, it's about leadership. It's about systems. It's about execution. It's about whether Guam can move from talking about transformation to actually building the government, workforce, economy, and quality of life our people deserve. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the Innovate Guam podcast, Speaker Frank F. Blas Jr. and Dr. Mary Okada. Speaker Blas, Dr. Okada, welcome back to the Innovate Guam podcast.
Thank you, Rob. Nice to be here.
Thank you, Rob.
Well, since both of you all have been here before, we're going to skip the traditional icebreaker questions and go right into the heart of the matter here. So I want to talk about who you are as a team and why you're running, what you believe Guam must fix, and how you plan to move from campaign promises to measurable execution. So first, Speaker Blas,
Yes.
let me start with you. You served in the legislature. You have led on issues like public safety, procurement, transparency, and fiscal responsibility. Dr. Okada spent decades in education, workforce development, finance, and institutional leadership. Why did you choose Dr. Okada as your running mate, and what does her background add to your vision for
No, the great
Guam?
thing about answering a question like that is you already answered the question for me. Okay. Okay. Well, first off, as I've stated many, many times, I think this was a partnership that was formed by the two of us choosing each other.
Mm,
Obviously there was a discussion about the opportunity to be able to run together, and it was a choice that was mutually agreed upon. And so with that, I approached Dr. Okada because of everything that you had stated and more. Her manner of which she's able to function and do the work that she needs to get done. In the times that we are now, it's a welcome compliment. She and I are going to put together a team that complements each other through both our strengths and our experiences. And what you're going to find is a governor and a lieutenant governor that are going to work in partnership. It's not one over the other; it's one next to each other, and that's the best way to be able to describe first off how the decision was made to run together, and how we intend to be able to function as governor and lieutenant governor.
outstanding. So now, pivoting to you, Dr. Okada, same question. When you were approached, how did you know this was the right fit for you?
So I'll say that, first of all, it wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't you know, speaker asked and I just said yes. I actually took a lot of time to respond to the request. Um, I did some soul searching, if you would, because I was already anticipating my retirement from the community college after serving for 18 years. And so and I'll say that I didn't retire from the college in order to run for politics. Politics wasn't something that I was looking forward to. It was just something that came as an opportunity to continue public service at a time when I just completed, over 30 years with the government of Guam. And so in terms of determining when it was the right time, well, the right time had to be after I was eligible to retire. There was no option before that. And the right team is, because, and I've said this to many people, when Speaker Blas asked, it took a while. And when I finally agreed to do this, it was something that I felt that I can continue to contribute in public service using the experience that I had at the community college. And of course, taking as you mentioned, taking a step into the executive branch is very different from being at the executive leader or the educational leadership position that I had. But it's coming together for me because people don't look at me as a politician. People look at me as a professional, and being able to do professional work that have benefited lots of communities here on Guam. And I want to take that professionalism or continue that professionalism at the executive level. So I think that's where the interest for me continues to grow as I start to learn more about this new role that I am seeking. And like I said, it's all about providing the professional leadership and with the experience that I have, with,
Yeah,
of
great.
course, in concert with Speaker Blas.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And it's interesting that you clarified that, because most people do assume that you retired from GCC in order to pursue political ambition. So that's good
No.
that you cleared it up. So moving along, a lot of political tickets look unified during the campaign, right? So, but once they're elected, the governor becomes the center of gravity and the center of attention, and the lieutenant governor can sometimes kind of get pushed to the side. So, Speaker Blas, what major responsibilities would you want to give Dr. Okada to own on day one?
Well, first off, to be able to answer the question, the way that Dr. Okada and I run our campaign is we run as a team. We run together. This is not a matter of one putting another above it, on a pedestal and moving forward. And based on the scenario, based on the situation, based on the question, is between us, who's best to be able to provide that answer. And that's what you're going to find in our administration. Okay. This is not a one over the other. This is one next to with each other. I mean, this is one, both of us together. We're going to capitalize, and we're going to utilize both the expertise and the experience that we have in managing certain facets of government. It's not a matter of stepping aside. It's a matter of, okay, you lead. I'm going to support. I'll lead. How are you going to be able to support me? And that's how we're going to be able to run this government. I think that gone are the days where basically the lieutenant governor is relegated to certain responsibilities, and all the responsibility is on the governor. This is a joint effort. This is a partnership that we're forming. This is a partnership that we tell people that we're going to have, in the partnership that we will run and we will execute by.
Yeah, Speaker Blas, that sounds like a very enlightened approach, very humble and stuff like that, to say we're running that as a team, and wherever your strong points are, you do that, and here are my strong points, and vice versa. That's a very
Mhm.
enlightened way to do it. Shifting to the focus to you, Dr. Okada, what areas do you believe you're uniquely qualified to lead in? Operationally, not just symbolically.
So I would say, as Speaker Blas identified, one of the things I do want to learn is all the other areas that he's an expert in. Because in education, or having been in education, every organization here on Guam has an educational component. And
Yes,
so dipping into public safety, there's an educational requirement. Anybody in accounting or fiscal management, there's a training component associated with that. Education's key for many of the areas, or for the whole of government. My expertise is in fiscal and grant management, and I think the college had done that very well under my leadership. Something that I
yes.
was very passionate about, in terms of seeking alternate funding sources. When you receive the funding sources, you use it for its intended purpose. You account for it when the audits come out. If there's some little minor discrepancy that you need to fix, you fix it within a certain timeline, not allowed to fester. So that's one area. So audit and compliance, fiscal, grant management. Education, of course, we all are interested, everyone is interested on what is going to be left for our kids, through their educational journey from K through their career, all the way through the pipeline. And so people are interested on what is this island going to be able to provide for their children, um, all the way through employment. And so that's a key area that of course I'm also interested in, because we want the folks that are trained here on Guam, of course, to remain here on Guam. But at the same time, in order to do that, we need to make sure that the occupational areas that students are interested in remain available here on Guam. And so it's kind of the notion is that if there's a job waiting for us here on Guam, that we're going to identify the local talent, that we can fill those local jobs, because many folks want to raise their families here. And so we want to be able to provide that opportunity for them. So, but again, as I mentioned, every aspect that Speaker Blas is familiar with, I'd like to learn about it, because there's going to be some points or some times when he's going to be away for whatever reason. And if a situation comes up, of course, I'd like to know a lot about it, so that I can make, in concert with him, even though he's away, make a conscious decision to make the best decision for Guam.
Understood, understood. A lot of great ideas in that. But one thing that I write about and talk about a lot is that Guam doesn't suffer from a shortage of plans, lots of plans for a lot of different things. We have studies, master plans, reports, strategies, all kind of things. But what we often lack is execution. So, Speaker Blas, if elected governor, what are the first three systems you would fix to make government execute faster and better?
No, I think first off, let's go ahead and address um, the 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 idea. First off, the notion that we don't suffer from a shortage of plans. We have a lot of plans, Bob,
Yes,
and there's almost a plan that come every year for the same to deal with the same issue. And I
yes,
think one of the things that I believe in, I've seen it actually happen, that a lot of times the implementation of these plans are uh, they don't occur simply
absolutely.
because it has the wrong name on it. Okay. Or
Wrong name. What do you mean by that?
it basically the individual that is now looking at it is not the author of the plan, is not the creator, okay, the individual that came up with the idea. So therefore, that plan is shelved. Um, that's not how Dr. Mary and I are going to be able to operate. Let's look at what the plan. Let's we've spent millions of dollars for various plans. Let's take a look and let's form a group to be able to take a look at these different plans, see which of these plans, you know, basically are feasible. We're able to do this, can do the job that we are looking to do. Okay, and if we and implement it so that we can get things going. Mary and I are, this is not going to be an administration that's going to that's not going to take all the credit. Okay. We'll give the credit where credit is due, and it doesn't matter who gets the credit, just get it done. And that's how we want to be able to work. There were many, just within in the construction industry alone, or within the business sector, the private sector, there have been a lot of discussions, a lot of plans, a lot of ideas that have been presented, but have never been implemented or never been discussed further because
Yes,
the individual who initiated was no longer around, and it's the new person. That's got to stop. That's got to stop. And so we want
yes.
to be able to look at that first. Before we talk about the first three systems that we want to be able to fix, let's look at the plans that we've got there and find these plans that we can implement almost immediately, and move forward on it. And then if it comes down that if it was Jackson's plan, that we're going to go with, and he was the architect of the plan, guess what? I'm going to invite you to the ribbon cutting and introduce it.
And you
It's
don't care
your plan.
whether that's a Democrat or Republican,
It doesn't matter.
conservative or liberal?
It doesn't matter. If it's right for the people, if it will do what it is intended to do,
Yeah,
okay, let's do this. Let's not spend another $1 million to tell me the same thing that I saw in the last.
yes.
And that's what we're doing.
That's
We're
smart.
wasting money instead of implementing.
That's smart. That's a smart approach. Smart approach, and just shows uh, it's practical rather than ideologically based. So that's a great segue, Speaker Blas, to kind of things that you've been passionate about. You've been a vocal um, um, advocate about procurement reform, permitting delays, and government inefficiency. Um, to me, those things aren't boring. It's one of the gateways to innovation. We really have to get serious about fixing those kind of issues if we're going to truly innovate Guam. So, in your opinion, what's specifically broken in Guam's procurement and permitting systems, and what would you do to change those things in the first year of your administration?
Well, interestingly enough, and Robin, you're very familiar with this because we did discuss this in the last podcast that I was on with you,
Yeah,
with regard to government procurement. And that as a result of many of the discussions we were having there, we actually had a procurement summit, that I know that you attended.
yes.
We brought in, members of the private sector as well as members of the public sector. And as you recall, while there were many issues and concerns with regard to how procurement operates, on this island, we highlighted four entities, GCC being one of them, University of Guam, the Guam Power Authority, and the airport. Okay,
Yes.
all that have to follow the same procurement guidelines, the same rules, the same laws. Yet, while having challenges as well, knew how to overcome those challenges and worked with it. See, so
Yes.
while we had one side that said we have a procurement law that needs fixing, we had another side that said, well, we run under the same premise, and we don't have a problem with this. So what does it come down to? I think it comes down to uh, making sure that the individuals who are in charge of procurement, at least on the government side, um, for lack of a better term, know what they're doing, and
Yes.
think that Dr. Mary is right now. I know she's frothing at the mouth. She wants to have an opportunity to 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 discuss this a little bit more. So I'm going to defer to her in continuing this discussion.
Yeah, she's been a
Right?
benchmark for what what is right about government procurement. So over to you, Dr. Okada.
So, it's interesting because it was just today that I had a discussion about somebody about procurement. And in as much as people say that it's such a monster to dissect and to get through the system, I said, so why don't we do some kind of a fast track short procurement module that says for these and give easy solutions for, certain problems. And you start to modularize it. And then, it's kind of like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? And
Right.
so you take little components of it, you create these fast track little modules, you put them all together, and before you know it, the procurement system has already been managed, salvageable,
Yes.
modified. And I like how you
Yes.
put the words that procurement reform is not bureaucracy, it's actually innovation. So let's get
Right.
innovation included in this discussion about procurement. And let's take it piece by piece so that we can create a modular system of best practices and say for these types of, this is how you do it, step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you start to modularize it and then get to the bigger, more complex ones like construction and use those and go through different ways on how to fix those components. But in terms of how to fix the procurement system, it's really about having the individuals know what they do, share what they do, mentor those that are coming up through the pipeline, because procurement, folks transition, they, through attrition, people quit, people retire, people get sick. And so you want to make sure that the individuals that you have are cross-trained in the other areas so that it doesn't go to a screeching halt because one person is gone or one person is missing. So there's got to be some training that is available to many people in the organization, not just the people sitting in the procurement office. To the extent that you can use administrative assistants to do the 3 price checks and the verification or the validation through the buyers, perfect. Have that
Right.
consistent training. We did that at GCC. My procurement officer was there at that summit. And, we talked about, and I was talking to her, I said, your module is working because every semester and every semester and as needed, when new people come on board, our procurement office provides training for individuals in-house on here's how to do it and here's how to get through our system faster so that it doesn't become a bottleneck.
Absolutely. What Speaker Blas and I talked about on the last podcast was about the need for more transparency, right? When you start building what we call standard work, right? Here's how everybody is going to do it. This is how the process looks. We're holding everybody accountable for this process. We're going to follow up. We're going to measure. We're going to monitor. We're going to have metrics and stuff on how well we're doing this process, and everybody is trained to the same standard and everybody's held accountable for doing it the same way. It helps fix a lot of those kind of issues, but more importantly, what it does is it sets a baseline for
Mhm,
everyone to learn from.
mhm.
Okay, if everybody's doing it this way, everybody's being held accountable, we're measuring it and we're analyzing based on this, now we know where we can get better. Here's where
Yes.
we can improve this piece. Here's where we can improve that piece. But when nobody's doing it to a standard, it's hard to kind of say, here's what you need to do to fix the process.
And that's why I say the fast track modules could be those standards. Here's the standard for this type of procurement, small purchase, purchase less than 25,000, procurement for professional services, and then building construction, modernization type projects.
All right, outstanding. So I'm going to come back to you later on, Dr. Okada, to talk to you about workforce development as an economic driver. But I want to turn right now to cost of living and the middle class crisis, and start with Speaker Blas. For many families, Guam's biggest issue is not, ideological. It's survival. It's housing, groceries, power bills, healthcare, childcare, and whether their kids have the ability to stay here on island, or they're going to be forced off island in order to pursue an affordable lifestyle. What's your honest diagnosis of why life has become so expensive in Guam, and what can we do about it? Speaker Blas, over to you.
Well, first off, I think that we've developed a sense of entitlement in many cases. And there are many people that are in our community that feel that that the government is supposed to provide them certain things so that they can continue to make them happy. Okay, it's not the government's role to make you happy. It's the government's role to provide you an opportunity, for happiness.
Mm,
Uh,
mm,
and that said is that the government, though, also needs to be able to provide the opportunities to be able to thrive, uh, provide the opportunities to be able to make lives, to get bureaucracy out of the way, so that businesses can open up, businesses can prosper, they can bring on employees, they can pay their employees, wages that they truly earn and deserve because of the skills that they have, the knowledge that they have. We need to be able to bring back up that response, not just the responsibility, sense of responsibility in the community, and the sense of ownership, but also, a sense of we've got to be able to trust that by putting systems and processes together, so that we can help people and giving them those avenues and those opportunities to help them, that they, that they'll get the help and they can improve. In the meantime, okay, many of the prices that we have can be related to, one is the economies of scale, okay, and being able to provide certain resources based on the number of people that we have. The scare that we have is that while a lot of individuals, and within just the last 10 years, that was in the census in 2010, we there were 170,000 residents on Guam, whereas in 2020 it was down to 150. Okay, when you have a business now that has to provide services or goods, retail services or goods, to a population that is less now, and has to compete with, outside markets and other factors, it becomes very difficult to be able to help to keep prices down. Okay,
right.
but if we can help to stop the outflow and the out migration of individuals, and we can actually bolster our population, but then also bolster the ability, the spending power of this population, then things can become more affordable. And it becomes more diverse, in as far as not just the opportunities, but in the kind of services and the kind of products that you'll be able to get. Um, you know, and so it's a multifaceted answer to this, and you've got to make sure that many of your efforts are there to be able to connect the dots. At the end of the day, what are all of your programs and your initiatives that you're going to implement? What are they going to provide? And they're going to provide a safe, prosperous opportunity for people that are living here on Guam, so they can continue to thrive and grow. And that's how we're going to be able to work that.
Outstanding. So, Dr. Okada, how do education credentials and workforce pathways translate into real wage growth, not just training for training's sake, so that people can see an increase in their lifestyle and um, their salaries and wage growth?
So first off, in terms of providing education and training for individuals, um, we really need to identify students, what their passion is or what their interest might be earlier in the education system. So we need to increase the amount of, or increase the interest inventory, if you would, on what students are interested in so that we could develop programs, if they don't already exist, in their middle school, even earlier than that, elementary, middle, high school, so that we can provide the training that's necessary. Once the training becomes available at the secondary and the post-secondary level, students always have or have an opportunity to actually engage in work experience in high school. And so giving them a taste of what that industry is and, what does the world of work look like, and provide that training based on the occupation that they're interested in. And I often use this example, and Speaker Blas always teases me about it, is, do you know how much we're paying for plumbers these days? I mean, they get paid a lot
Yes,
of money. And,
yes,
it's a trade that individuals that want to make some money, and there's a large demand for them out there, not just for plumbers. Air conditioning on Guam, everybody has air
yes,
conditioners for the most part. So just even learning how to clean the air conditioners or maintain the air conditioners, even in your private residence, is a trade that takes you a very, very long way. So those, I mean,
yes,
those are things that, and of course, for the women in the kitchen, learning how to cook, provide meals, do baking, all of those types of training is beneficial, not just on the family front, but also as a career. But what we want to do in education really is not just to support your personal interest, but also to identify and support what the market is looking for. What the market's looking for today, what the market is gearing up for in the next 3 to 5 years and longer term into the future, and providing you those foundational skills so that you could advance or even pivot to another job as the jobs shift in the long term. So we used to talk about clusters, occupational clusters, where you
mm,
provide the foundational framework for transportation, for example. And if you got the transportation foundation, in the long run, you could actually take 3 or 4 different career opportunities. The foundation remains the same, but it becomes like concentrations in certain areas. So and I'll use construction again as another example. Construction often covers not just masonry, carpentry, but also electrical, plumbing, HVAC. And so those particular areas, if you get a degree or a certificate in construction or construction management, you can actually, in the construction industry, go from, you know, interest in electricity, sometimes plumbing, and become a general contractor so that you're able to do multiple components. But I think what's important here is that we're not just offering education for education's sake. It's credentials to get those higher paying jobs that require or demand the certification, but also providing you other opportunities. I mean, some people want to just do enrichment courses for their own use, but most students that come through the community college and even through the university, it's for long career goals. But providing them opportunities at the certificate degree level, associate degree level, the bachelor's degree, and then also in very, very specific certifications that help them through that educational pipeline.
okay, let's shift gears to public safety, drugs, and community stability. So, Speaker Blas, your law enforcement and homeland security background gives you a very direct perspective on public safety. Guam families are worried about drugs, crime, mental health, homelessness, and neighborhood stability. What is your public safety strategy beyond this more enforcement?
I think it becomes down to now more responsibility. You know, obviously, we don't want to create a police state. We don't want to have where you have a police
Yes,
officer in every corner. You want some degree of, not just not so that it doesn't look like, you've got somebody watching over your shoulder all the time. And but you, at the same time, you want to be able to feel safe. I think that I believe that technology today, if technology that we have today was existed when I was back in law enforcement or Homeland Security for that matter,
yes,
I wouldn't have as much gray hair as I have right now. And, uh, because that provides a platform that the
yes,
community can use to be able to help to protect itself and to
yes,
be able to identify where those threats are at. Okay. And if we utilize that technology, if we utilize the effort, and then but also make sure culture with they making wanting to bring a sense of responsibility back within the community, and it starts with the government. It starts with the people that are in charge of, in this case, law enforcement. Where uh, I remember when I was a police officer, one of the tasks that we had on a daily basis was that you made sure that you knew who the business owners were. You knew the
mm,
families that lived in your beat area, and they
right,
in turn also knew you. So they developed a sense of a relationship, um, that if there was an issue, they knew who was going to come, and they knew you knew what the inside of the store looked like. You knew what the makeup of the community was. And it's
right.
not too late for us to go back to a lot of that. And with the technology we have today, it makes that easier. And so it's utilizing again that the technology that we have, and so that we can help to build a safer community, so that we can help our people, feel safer in their homes. With regards to crime, and homelessness and everything, let's look at the root of the problem. Let's not just look at the person caused the burglary. What caused that individual to want to need to burglarize? What caused that
Yes,
individual to want to resort to drugs? Okay, and look at
yes,
those concerns and look into those reasons and help to address those. Okay, it may be because they needed to put food on the table. Well, then maybe can we provide some opportunities so that you don't have to resort to stealing. You're making the money that's necessary, the income that's necessary to be able to feed yourself and to put the roof over your head and feel comfortable and build your dignity, uh build your pride, so that you don't have to resort to this life of crime and violence and drug use. And when we start to do that, you're going to start to see a decrease in the number of social issues and the number of the reasons as to why people commit crimes. It doesn't necessarily mean, like I said, more police officers out on the street. It's a more now responsive and a more responsible community, and that's how, because beyond being more enforcement.
yeah, I love your thought and your talk about root cause analysis, getting to what the heart of what's driving it and not just deal with the symptom or the outcome over here, but getting to the root cause. I really like that approach. Dr. Okada, shifting to you, how does education, prevention, youth programs, and family support fit into a serious public safety strategy?
So let's start with education. I think from the education front, as it relates to public safety, students should be given information for their awareness. They need to know what's out there so that when they see it or when they encounter something, that they're going to be able to identify or address it or speak with authorities so that with the authorities so that they can help mitigate a situation if it were to occur. I really like that slogan that says, when you see something, say something.
Yes.
And that's very important for children, but they need to understand, when I see what, when I see it, then who do I tell? So
Yes.
when we put those quotes around, the educational side of it is, here's the awareness for children, here's the awareness for young adults, here's the awareness for parents, what to see in terms of where their kids are when they're surfing the internet, and how do you address situations like that. So that educational piece is, it's knowing about what's out there. I mean, we do it all the time with computers. Here's what phishing means, here's what cybersecurity threats are, here's to identify it. And so it's an educational approach to what is out there and what's apparent. When you talk about prevention, it really is, here are the consequences of something gone wrong, right? So if you choose the wrong path, here are the consequences. So some people are deterred because of the consequences, and so that component, can help, when in order to help prevent some of the crimes that occurred. In terms of youth programs, I mean, you see it every weekend. We see it every weekend. Sports for the kids, activities for the kids, jujitsu, swimming. All of these activities are two things. One is for well-being, which is really great. Two, it's sportsmanship. It's a
Yes.
family ordeal, and it's just not just the student and mom, it's student, mom, grandparents, aunties, uncles. It's
Yes.
bringing everybody to enjoy an
Yes.
activity. And I think Guam has really expanded in that sense, because the youth programs that are available help deter from, you know making bad decisions, because they're focused, they're with groups, they're with adults, they're being coached, they're being mentored, and it's a family event. And then the other part, the family support. There's different things that I always consider when we talk about family support is, what does a family do if one of my kids get involved in some serious issue? Who do I go to? How can I deal with this? Because sometimes the neglect on individuals of the family is because they don't know what to do, and they don't know where to go to seek help. And
Right.
and so, as I mentioned earlier, all of these need to be considered part of the public safety strategy, everywhere from awareness to prevention, to providing youth activities and support for the families, for the children, for the people that are affected. And to me, that's all an educational. It's an educational activity, for everyone to get engaged in this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I see out there is false perceptions. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I come from the CONUS and I look at public safety issues and crime here on the island, and I compare that to the CONUS, and it's like you don't have anything compared to what's going on back there in terms of the craziness and whatnot. But then you talk to some people who've been here for all of their lives, and they're saying, wow, look at the kind of things that are happening on my island that I didn't have to put up with during time when I was coming up, or my parents were coming up, or my grandparents. Things are out of control. It's like complete anarchy. So the question is, those false perceptions that be out there, how would your administration measure whether Guam is actually becoming safer, so that you don't fall into the trap of either everything's completely great and wonderful, or it's complete anarchy out there on the island?
Talk to people. Okay, we talk to the community. We talk to the people. We talk to the stakeholders. We talk to the individuals that, um, you know, we're we are we're to serve. We're supposed to serve. Okay, a lot of times I've seen this many times. Decisions in government are made in a vacuum. They're made in silos. They're made and based on uh, reports of this, reports of that, with not ever looking at how that information was gained. Okay, what were the questions?
Yes.
Who who was asked these questions? It, Many years ago, when I was the chairman of Health and Human Services, when I first in the 29th Guam Legislature, I ran my public hearings from the bottom up, or I flipped it. If there was an issue with regard to how the hospital was providing a certain service, my hearings would start with first the patient, the individual that had to do that
Mm,
needed that service. Then I went up the line. Then I went to the person that this patient had to see, the first person in the hospital, and then up the way. So that by the time I got to the administrator, okay, the administrator already knew. Don't tell me what you think I need to hear. Tell me what I need. I mean, tell me what I need to
right.
hear. Okay, because I've already heard the problem, and that's what we got to do to be able to resolve a lot of these things. Again, like you said, many of the issues that we have in with regard to crime, in comparison to what you see on national television or what you hear, granted, yes, we don't have that to that magnitude, but you know what? We don't want to get there. But we also have some issues here that, okay, um, yeah, it may be minuscule or minute depending as comparison to over there, but it still affects the community, and
Right.
that can't be neglected.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. You did a good segue into kind of the next area of questions I wanted to talk about, and that's healthcare and human services. So, healthcare is one of Guam's most difficult problems. Hospital capacity, physician shortages, mental health, elder care, Medicaid constraints, medical referrals, and the future Guam Memorial Hospital. What is your plan to stabilize healthcare on Guam?
We first fix the system. Okay. Granted that the 800-pound gorilla that's in the room is building a new hospital. All right. Dr. Okada and I have plans to be able to build a new hospital. All right. But we don't want to build a hospital with the same system, with the same antiquated and the system that exists today. Okay. It's one thing to have a brand new hospital with all new facilities, but if you can't get to the hospital because there's only 2 ambulances working when there should be 16, okay? Or you need to, you go to the emergency room, for an event that could have been better handled, okay, and quicker response had you gone to an urgent care facility that was no, it exists down the street, but for many years has been left vacant or unused. If we start to fix those systems, those those processes that feed into the hospital, by the time we build the hospital, when the hospital is built, okay, with the new systems, right now as we speak, within the hospital, the last time in the last briefing we had, they had issues with three information management systems that don't talk to each other. Okay, and how do you have that, or do you don't have a system that be able to talk to other facilities, other clinics that can help you to provide you the accurate, the most precise information to be able to provide the best health care for your patient?
Right.
Let's build those systems, and let's improve upon those systems so that when we finally build this hospital, okay, the hospital now has a system that surrounds it that will make sure that it's providing the health care that people need.
Yeah. Dr. Okada, with regard to that, how do we build the healthcare workforce locally so that we don't always find ourselves constantly reacting to shortages in the healthcare um, um, area, whether it be doctors, nurses, um, nursing assistants, whatever. How do we build a system so we can reliably have a pipeline and fill those needs and requirements locally and not always have shortages?
So I would, one of the first things I would say is that in order for us at the educational level to build capacity is we need to get more individuals that are in the profession to help do the training. So we're
Mm,
limited in terms of how many students you can have in a class based on how many faculty you have because of, so if we can get more professionals that are in industry that can come help and teach a class or teach a series of classes, that we would be able to expand the educational side of it. The other piece is we do have allied health professional programs that are currently in the high schools, but maybe there's an opportunity not just to, I mean, maybe there is an opportunity to perhaps offer students that are in high school with the credential once they graduate from high school.
hmm.
And there are models across the United States. And as a matter of fact, the speaker has a niece that recently graduated from high school with a college degree. And so
Oh,
those models
wow.
exist
Yeah.
in health occupation, and it exists, and it's a program that we've taken a look at the community college, but it really is, getting them into the pipeline a lot quicker by providing the courses a lot sooner. So there is a dual track that is available. It's something the college was looking at for some time. We believe that we could do something and get students with, like I said, finish a degree while they're in high school. We just need to have additional faculty to teach the health courses, to teach the nursing courses. And then based on what the industry requires, and this is similar to what we did many years ago. At the time we built the licensed practical nurse program, that's because we were asked by industry to develop a program because the college never had one. And so as a result of that, we had a very successful licensed practical nursing program. Well, fast forward, I don't know, 10 years or so, we know there's a degree shortage in RNs. And so there's a 2-year RN and there's also a 4-year RN. So the
Mm,
college put together all the requirements, and it takes time, but we put together all the requirements to offer now the associate's degree in nursing, which is a 2-year RN, which are your bedside nurses. So it really is keeping it up in tabs with industry, getting industry to support the educational requirements in terms of faculty requirements to continue programs and expand programs. And then, of course, hiring them. Providing the training is one part. Providing them the compensation is the other part, right? So we
yes,
heard during
yes,
during the pandemic, we were paying a lot of money for all of these travel nurses, and they were
yes,
doing, for some of them, doing the same work that the local nurses were doing, but the local
exactly,
nurses were not getting paid what the travel nurses were getting paid.
exactly.
So, so of course, compensation is always an issue when it comes to healthcare professionals, but and so that's something that also needs to be looked at, not just providing them with the credentials, but you got to look at it forward. You need to be forward thinking and identifying if we have all these trained nurses, how many of them are actually going to stay? Are the wages competitive enough for them to
Yes.
stay? There are programs right now that the college offers. There are 10 occupational areas that is through a grant from WICHE, where the college is managing this particular grant. And what it does is identify individuals that are in 10 health occupational areas, including doctors, physical therapists, osteopathic medicine, and the like. And basically it's part of a like um what is it called? It's part of a group of institutions where students from Guam can go and they can get the resident rate instead of paying the out-of-state rate.
Okay.
And the college manages funding that is provided, and they're allowed to fundraise to get additional funding. and the college pays through this program, pays for the tuition for the student. The student is required to come back to Guam and pay in service on Guam, not the government of Guam, but come back to Guam. So
Right.
getting more people into that pipeline and having them come back to Guam offers the, of course, it's kind of like a payback for the training that they're given, but it also helps to build capacity here. There are a lot of students, if you've been to a lot of the high school graduations and even the college and the university graduations, there are a lot of individuals that are interested in medicine, in the different areas of medicine, from licensed practical nursing to associate degree in nursing to the 4-year RNs. And there are individuals that are interested in becoming doctors and physical therapists. And so we just need to help support them. I mean, one of the things that Guam could consider is that, and they've done this in several other states, is that if an individual had to borrow money for that, could there be some loan assistance program that can be
Yes.
offered at the local
Yes.
government level to help offset that debt, provided the individual is here on Guam practicing. So
Yes.
that's something that can be considered.
So this is a question for both of you all, and circling back to Speaker Blas's response about the healthcare issue, that we got to fix systems. So, in your opinion, what are the decisions that have to be made that right now politicians are often avoiding?
One is, okay, what kind of facility do we need?
Mm,
Okay. And then, which is, really the question, where is it going to be built? And then how are we going to pay for this? Okay. One of the questions that's been avoided and has not been discussed, based within the last 4 years, that this discussion was whether it's going to be this hospital is going to be built in Manila or back in Tumuning or another place, is
right.
how much is this going to cost to be able to build? Where are you going to get the money to be able to do this? Okay, and how are we going to continue to sustain this? So those are the questions that also need to be asked. And in the meantime, okay, where there is money, that's funding that's available, so that you can fix the systems that exist around the facility and even the existing facility itself. Because, Rob, even as let's say we make the decision and this hospital is going to be built here and it's going to be this type of facility. You're in the construction industry. Let's go with a basic hospital structure. How long is it going to take for that facility to be built? Okay, okay. From architecture to ribbon cutting to accepting the first patient, how long is that process going to take? The
Yes.
last time I checked, I don't think we can legislate or put an executive order together and say for the next 4 or 5 years you're not allowed to have a heart attack or get pregnant. Those things, those are still going to occur, and we still need to have the system and the facility to be able uh, to deal with those events. So there is the question, that needs to be asked and answered before we can move forward.
Yeah. Dr. Okada?
I'm not a politician, but one of the things you also have to consider is not just the how much, the where, the sustaining it, is where are the workers going to come from? If we're just replacing what we currently have, is that what Guam needs? Or are there other areas where we actually need to build into and build the occupational areas to support it? So is there a need for us to increase the number of X-ray techs, for example? Is there a need for us to maybe enter into public-private partnerships so that we can
Yes.
get workers, from other areas that can come to
Yes.
Guam? Is there something that can be worked out with the military because they have a
Yes.
limited bed capacity. So taking a look at what is it that Guam needs, what is it that Guam and the military need. Guam as one component, because the military has a footprint, but the number of beds at the new hospital is probably not going to be enough. I mean, we just need to anticipate if we had a major disaster, how are we going to be able to do this? And then where are the workers going to come from?
That's
So
so smart, Dr. Okada, because
Mhm.
that's the way you frame the argument. It's in a national security argument based upon Guam's geography and how it's built into current COCOM operational plans. Therefore, you need certain number of beds, certain capacity, certain capability. So therefore, this is how we work together to provide that. Yeah.
correct,
And
but also taking into consideration the region,
Yes.
Saipan, the FSM,
Yes.
Palau. We need to look at
Yes.
the region, this region
The
that we are
region.
in, because I
Yeah.
mean, just as a simple example, Typhoon Sinlaku came, CNMI has a need for assistance to get workers from Guam Power over to Saipan to help them get their power back up. Okay, if there
Right.
was a disaster or something happening here, or Guam became the hub for that that care, that critical care, what does the capacity in our region look like? And we need to
Yes.
identify not just building the capacity for Guam, but building the
Yeah.
capacity for the region as well. Because the
The
region, there's
region and
many
the
folks,
military. Yeah.
because there are folks from the region that come to Guam for help, for medical assistance. And so we need to take those into consideration.
Yes.
well,
Speaker
if I can
Blas.
add to this, Rob, you know, I'm very aware of the movement of this buildup. As a matter of fact, I was one of those individuals that was in the first meeting when the then Department of Defense, now the Department of War, came to start the initial the discussions on this buildup. And over the years, the purpose for the buildup and the reason why they were doing all of the movement had changed. Okay, back in
Yes.
2004, we were just a peacekeeping force,
Yes.
and wanting to be able to satisfy some of the concerns from Japan about the number of personnel that were there. Nothing to do with now, today, the protection of the Indo-Pacific region with the first chain, second island chain. Okay.
Yes.
Back when we started these conversations, the Naval Hospital had 150 bed capacity. Then they rebuilt, they raised that building, they built new one based on what was supposed to be, again, the reason why they were having the buildup, and the only thing that they needed was a 48 bed, okay, facility. That has drastically changed.
Yes.
Guess what? The
Yes.
conversation we have today about what we should expect from them could change next year. And
It's
it's in the process of changing. They're on hold right now. So we don't know what
yes.
that final number will be. So
Yes.
those are all those discussions that we need to have when we start to talk about just not just the needs of our community, the local community, but our community as a whole, to include that of the military, and then our regional community.
Yes.
There
And
are
look at
so
even
many discussions.
this week's announcement out of the White House, um, well, Department of War, that we're going to have a name change. We're going back from Indo-PACOM to PACOM. We want to
Mhm.
focus on the Pacific. So again, that focus and what does that mean for strategy? And then
Right.
what does that, translate down for Guam? There's still a huge component there. And all we're doing is focusing more on the Pacific at a more granular level, not, divorcing ourselves from looking at the importance of Pacific and the Guam play. So
There you
I
go.
think there's
Yeah.
a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just last week it was something else. Today it's changed.
Yes,
Okay. Right.
yes. Okay, let's shift gears to Guam as a 21st century tech and innovation hub. So my long running argument is that Guam has the opportunity to become a 21st century tech and innovation hub built around defense sustainment, logistics, MRO, and workforce development. Do you all buy into that vision? Specifically, Speaker Blas, what role should the governor play in positioning Guam inside the Indo-Pacific or now Pacific defense and logistics ecosystem?
Well, first off, whether or not we have the opportunity, whether or not we want the opportunity, it's here. Okay,
Yeah.
Rob? Okay.
Yep.
Almost 90, if not more than 90% of all the communications of all the communications line from the Indo-Pacific, from Asia into CONUS come through here.
Yes.
Okay. The infrastructure is here. So it behooves us that if it's here, we not only have an opportunity, but a responsibility to make sure that that line of communication is free flowing and it is working. Let's go
Right.
back and I wear my emergency management hat. All right. The greatest chaos to cause in a community is shut down its communication. And we've
Yes.
seen that,
And
when,
that's probably going to be the first attack, cyber.
right, it's going to be the first attack, but we've also seen the experience with this in our experiences with Marwar and even as recent as in Laku,
Yes.
when communications went down, the chaos that
Yes.
it was caused, the miscommunication, the lack of communication, all right, and the fear that was caused within the community. So it behooves us because of where we're at geographically, geopolitically, uh, and just for our own sanity, that we've got to be able to strengthen those areas so that we are. It's up to us. We've got to be able to sustain it. So
Yes.
it's not an opportunity. It's more of a necessity that we need to
Yes.
be able to address. So as governor, one of the things you want to be able to do is you want to make sure first of you understand what your role is and what the role of the community is. Okay, and be able to provide those resources so that you're not that bottleneck, you're not that point of the communication point that fails, so that everybody else around you and within you, um, it causes panic and chaos. You don't want that to happen. You can't afford for that to happen. So you've got to be
Yes.
that's got to be one of your priorities, if you will, is to recognize, understand, and to provide support for that.
Dr. Okada, given that context, how do we prepare students and workers for jobs that fully don't even exist yet, but clearly are coming with new technology and new opportunities and stuff?
Partnership, partnership, partnership. And the reason why I say that is because if an industry needs workers, in order for us to build the workforce capacity, we need to know what they're looking for. And they need to help us build, what are the skills that are necessary in order to effectively carry out whatever their mission is or whatever their business industry is. Everybody in business has their tabs on what's coming up, but in order for us to help them build their capacity for their business, it needs to get down into the educational levels. And so partnership, I say partnership in terms of apprenticeships, internships, work experience that exist in the high schools. All of these components give two things. One is the student the opportunity to engage with industry and learn about the industry, and for industry to identify individuals through those partnerships that are capable of carrying out those types of jobs. And sometimes, we've heard from employers, I just want a warm body so that I can train them. It's even building the interest. And so partnership in terms of working with the community college, working with the university in the departments. So like the college, we have advisory councils to build curriculum for certain programs or for all programs. And so knowing what those program or what those degrees or certifications that are required, if they help us build or at least give us an idea what that curricular requirement is, and we can help build it. So that's one area. And the other area I mentioned earlier is to identify, okay, this is the cluster or the area that I'm interested in, and giving them what those foundational levels are, so that as they get through the educational system, K through 12, they build on that mastery, so that when they get to high school or during high school, that they can focus in on that career. So it's engaging the student a lot earlier. But again, I mentioned partnership, and I would say across the spectrum, not just with the private sector, but also with the military. We knew this military buildup was coming for a long time. We know that after construction, there's going to be a service requirement. So as they put in these air conditioning systems, somebody's got to maintain it. They put in all this landscaping, somebody's going to have that contract afterwards. And so it's identifying, pre-construction, construction, and post-construction, what the jobs are that are going to be available, and making sure that students understand where the jobs are so they can align themselves, and then getting into businesses so that they can get the advanced training that is necessary. But partnerships are key in that regard.
Yes, absolutely. So, Speaker Blas, back to you. You've been a champion of government reform, cutting bureaucracy, fixing the permitting system, and all those kind of things. Um, this isn't a poke in the eye, but if Guam is going to build that kind of ecosystem, we're going to have to build a much more business-friendly environment. Do you agree with that? And how do we get there to build a business-friendly environment where people from all over, US, Asia, across the Pacific say, hey, I want to go and set up business in Guam because Guam is a great place to operate out of?
Well, first off, we got to remove this fallacy that in order for government to operate efficiently, it's got to operate like a business. You trust me, you don't want government to operate like a business. Okay? Government is in the business of spending your money. They're not in the business of being able to make money, okay, to gain the revenues. And I've always told this to people, it's just government has a great wall, they do good enough effort in needing to spend it. We need to keep them out of the way of being of getting them or stymieing the effort to be able to create and to grow and to create and to sustain business. All right. What are those opportunities? What are those statutes? What are those regulations that hold back in this with business growth? Okay.
Right.
What are those ways that we can be able to cut down some of the wait times necessary? A lot of people think, let's talk about that. And we talked about in our last podcast a little bit about it on this one here. We currently have, and I'm waiting, and it's going to be in the next session, the legislation that would be able to put a shot clock, if you will, on permitting processes. Okay, so that if government does not provide or does not move on a permitting process in X number of days, with the opportunity, the business having the opportunity to be able to assist government in being able to move this process along, that there's going to be the conditional approval so that we can move things forward. That's going to be necessary because as I said, when government says, oh, I'll get to it next month, well, guess what it means to the business? It means the business has got to find a way to sustain itself over the next 30 days, find ways to be able to pay for the bills over the next 30 days without an activity to be able to generate the funds. So at the end of the day, nobody makes out of this. Not the government, not the business, not the employee, not the consumer. And we're studying that. So that's what we've got to be able to look at, is find those ways to be able to. Government has its regulatory responsibilities, no doubt about it. Okay, to make sure that businesses run, safely and within certain parameters of law. But other than that, don't be the stymie of it.
Right.
Don't be the cause for why businesses move forward. Okay, and have a discussion with the business as to what are those innovations that can help us to move along. What are those new opportunities that government you can help us and you can assist us with, so that we can move these things along. In the cases of creating private-public partnerships, creating tax incentives,
Yes.
abatements and whatnot, so that we can have the
Yes.
capital to build and to grow, and in building and growing, we can provide the revenue. Because one of the things that I've always reminded my colleagues and many people in the government, okay, whether and let's it goes to the business privilege tax. When the whole discussion was whether we have it at 5% or 4%, I said, guys, I just want you to know one thing: that whether or not it's at 5%, 4%, or 3%, or even 6%, if it's at 6%, 6% of zero is zero. 3% of zero is zero. So no matter what,
Yes.
okay. If you think
Yes.
that that's what your problem is, no, your
Yes.
problem is that, okay, if you don't have the revenue, you're not going to have taxes.
Right.
Okay.
And you solve the problem of how do you make Guam attractive to people coming here. Again, if it's not attractive, it goes to
Mhm.
what your argument is. You're getting a business privilege tax of zero because
Right.
they're not coming here. But
Yeah.
if you can make this an attractive place where business wants to come, wants to operate, wants to set up shop, want to hire local talent and do business, then you do have an opportunity to get a percentage of that through the taxation.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
yeah. All right, let's shift gears to education reform. Dr. Okada, Guam's education system is under enormous pressure. Facilities, teacher retention, student performance, school safety, parental trust, and career readiness are all on the table. What would be your top educational um, priorities in your administration?
So first of all, in terms of the education system, one of the things, I mean, and it's not just K-12. The education system here on Guam really is K-12, public schools, private schools, charter schools, community college, University of Guam, because all of these, all of the whole education system is all of our students going through the pipeline, even the homeschool student. So when you talk about teacher retention, student performance, so there's a lot of information that's available at the K-12 system, through the charter school system, the college, university. We talked about plans earlier. Every organization that I just mentioned, they all have strategic plans. As a matter of fact, today I just sent a note to the chairwoman and to the superintendent saying, we need to go back and we need to revisit the strategic plan and we need to update it, because the focus really should be on the student, because you want the
Yes,
student to succeed. But in order for the
yes,
student to succeed, the teachers have to have they have to have the tools necessary, the educational tools. In order for a student to succeed, and I've said this in the legislature many times, you got to have a conducive learning environment. In order for a student to succeed, you have to have parents that are supportive of their children. It's not a daycare. You got to have, parental involvement, involvement in the child's upbringing through the educational system. In order for a student to succeed, the government and everyone else has to provide, teachers for the classroom. They have to provide, I mean, this is the whole spectrum. So
yes,
in order to identify what is the top education priorities for the Blas Okada administration, it's let's bring in all the stakeholders and let's find out what it is that is really causing them to struggle, and come to and then prioritize how those specific strategic items, what is going to be considered your 3 to 5 year short-term goal, long-term goals, and how do we get it going in support of and from the government as well. because
Right.
the educational system K-12 doesn't just operate in a vacuum. It requires coordination sometimes with public health because of the inspections. It requires support from Department of Public Works because of the busing. I mean, everybody in the government, everybody in the community supports the public school system or the educational system in various ways. So we all need to help support education here on Guam. Now, there are some things that you can do for teacher retention. There could be some consideration for a retention compensation of some sort. That is a one-time retention. We talked about the nurses' pay. We need to talk about, teachers' pay. We need to talk about, how much compensation, where are the teachers in terms of, compensation? What percentile are they at? What percentile do we desire to be? And then, but we really need to focus on, the test scores. The test scores of the students is an indication of where a student is and where a student nationally needs to be. But we also need to identify, do we really need to use or to compare students to the national test? I mean, is that necessary? Do we need to,
Yeah.
I mean, for mobility, purposes or for them to move from one school system to another school system stateside and stuff, yes, all of that would be important. But those student test scores are an indication of where the students are in terms of reading, writing, math, those specific areas. But then is what kind of support can we give them if a student is struggling? And that goes
Right.
all the way up, not just in, like I said, K-12, all the way through the community college, because we have to offer what we call wraparound services to even students that are in college. And so, like I said, in order to identify what the top priorities are for the Blas Okada administration, I think we need to bring educators together and we need to identify what the critical areas are. We need to prioritize, different things that we can work on so that we can all work together to help improve the education system here on Guam. Sustain the areas where we're doing well, but also to provide some partnership in helping to develop and move the systems forward.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So, Speaker Blas, to you, again, you like to look at systems, right? And a lot of people feel like there needs to be more accountability in the education system. So, how would you hold the education system accountable as governor while still supporting the key stakeholders of the system?
You notice that Mary and I are both smiling is because I have to sleep with an educator every night. Okay. And so trust me, I will get the accountability report every night. Okay. And I do that. And it comes down to the basic premise as to why education exists. It's to teach the kids. It's to provide them with the best education experience and opportunity that we can provide. And utilizing getting those resources and utilizing those resources to the best of our ability to be able to provide this. And so in the accountability, I've got what I would consider a very fortunate advantage to this, in that I will hear this firsthand. I will hear how a fifth grader is now being able to they they are now excited about learning more because it has now become relevant to, as Dr. Okada had stated, one of the things we want to look at is whether or not our standardized tests, um, you know, is it necessary for us to be able to use, those tests, or can we have tests, you know, align more to what our experiences are here? Trust me, kids don't know the four seasons. We only have two on Guam. Okay. But then we've got other things that are surround us that other areas don't have, that we need to take more advantage of. And again,
Yes.
I have that ability to be able to assess this and see how this is working firsthand by
Mhm.
seeing how these kids are being educated. So, in I guess in holding them accountable, the accountability is this kid, is this child getting the education that they deserve and that they need to be able to advance?
Okay.
Okay.
So let's shift gears and go to the defense buildup, right? So the defense buildup is not just a military issue. It affects lots of things on Guam. Everything from housing, roads, utilities, workforce, small businesses, healthcare, and even the cost of living. It also creates opportunities for Guam to build real industrial capability. How would a Blas uh, Okada administration make sure Guam captures more value from the buildup instead of simply absorbing the disruption? How would you go about creating a better partnership to extract more value out of the buildup?
No, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I again, I like to focus on partnerships because this disruption, or I wouldn't call it a disruption more than other than temporary, because it is a temporary disruption. At some point, it's going to become part of our daily operations, daily life. And so I think that, again, understanding, I mean, the businesses that are associated with the buildup are here or coming. And it's helping to identify what those opportunities are for individuals that can help to support that business or that new industry when it does get here. But I think we need to be very deliberate in what is it that we're able to provide. Because you hear it, build it and they will come. Well, but there's the other side of it is if it doesn't exist, they're not bringing it. And I want to say in the area of like ship repair, the ships don't come because we don't have the workers to fix the ship. But we don't have the workers to fix the ship because there's no ships to come to repair. So there's got to be some balance between, you know, where's that capacity going to come? Is it temporary? And that's why I mentioned earlier, we got to focus on what's available in the region because some of the opportunity exists. They may have capacities in certain areas. They can come to
Right,
Guam to help us during that surge period, and then they
right.
go back more trained for contributing to the economies that they have back in their respective islands. But we really need to look in terms of workforce development based on the workforce capacity of the region. So understanding what the industries are, understanding how do we capture more value with these industries. I would say one of the things is being at the table to understand what those industries are that are coming and understanding what are the occupational areas that are going to be needed for them to be successful businesses here on Guam. And, looking at, because some people come for a short time, they do a certain project and then they move on. Well, which ones are here to stay? Because we don't want to,
Right.
we don't want our workforce to leave us when they do, unless there's something else that they can, transition into. So I would say being at the table and having discussions with the industry partners to understand what their capabilities are, what their requirements are.
Yes, ma'am. One of the things I was having a conversation with somebody recently that Guam really needs a seat at the table and an understanding of the Department of War's contracting and procurement process because there's a lot of contracts, whether it be ship repair or whatever, that are being let, but they're not being let locally. They're being
Correct.
let by different organizations and different agencies
Mhm,
back at various places in the states and everything else. And
mhm.
they're given to different companies, and those companies are setting up their structure of subs and other vendors and stuff like that. And the perception about Guam being easy to work in and stuff like that has an impact on whether we're going to come and set up shop out of Guam or we're going to go to some other place and do that. Also, having the right person talking in Congress and directly to the Department of War to help insert in a lot of that contracting language, information that drives certain levels of local hire or incentives for apprenticeship programs, internship programs, training and development and stuff, so that, okay, if I do set up shop here, I have an incentive or even a requirement by my contract to hire and train and develop and stuff like that. So we really got to get really savvy about that kind of aspect rather than just kind of waiting for somebody to come and just drop it on us, if you will. So just
But
sharing
Rob,
that thought.
I'd also like to add though, maybe we need to also understand, are they looking for the lowest price? Because in some
Sometimes they are.
instances,
Sometimes they're looking for
they're
the best
not.
value.
Yeah. I mean, but I mean, you think of it in terms of, like, for example, at the community college, whenever we do a procurement, there is a provision in Guam law that says if the cost that is provided by a local business is not more than 15%, then you award the local business. I mean, that's a Gov Guam, and that's to encourage individuals from here for going through the bidding process and, you know, taking that risk, or providing them with that opportunity. So it's helping to incentivize local businesses to do business here on Guam. So, you know, having that leg up, if you would, into the procurement process, because if they're looking for best value versus best price, and then they turn around and they try to sub it to a local, I mean, to the same company that offered a lower price, I mean, that to me sometimes it's just unbelievable. I think we need to learn more about how those contracts are also developed and how they're awarded.
Yeah, I will tell you that Guam's geography is the gift that keeps on giving.
Mm,
And just by our geography alone, it makes sense to do a lot of the repair, sustainment, and logistics requirements here in Guam or throughout this Micronesia
mhm,
region. The
mhm,
problem, I think, a lot of the primes who get these contracts, let alone their subs and stuff, is that they don't feel like either one, they have a friendly environment to work in, or two, that they don't have any incentives to get in there. So they're going to go with, what can I do at the cheapest amount in order to increase my profits? If there was more marketing, if there was more engagement, even with the requirements community who are writing the contracts and stuff like that, bringing that together, it only makes sense that this would be the place where a lot of that
mm,
MRO, logistics, and sustainment work would happen, just based on geography and support of the war fighter. It's just a matter of making the case and then presenting an environment where we can make that happen at the best value.
mhm,
I think to add to the discussion with this, Rob, to add to the discussion in this, is you're right. There has to be more a more robust discussion on,
Yes,
cost benefit analysis and advantages of being able to provide and to look towards the activity being performed here by individuals here for a number of reasons. Okay. And let's be honest, there are a lot of times these are decisions that are made by bean counters who don't even know where Guam exists. Okay.
right.
They're just told that we have an outpost somewhere out in the Pacific, um,
Yes,
and then it's there. I liken this to many years back when I was the Homeland Security Advisor. We had the opportunity of being able to provide or to participate in a national exercise, and the exercise was to test the national capability of responding anywhere within the United States and its protectorates uh, in case of disasters, and so that the cavalry will be there in a moment's notice. Okay. And I said, great, let's test this, test this capability. Okay. And so when the exercise planners came out to Guam, of course they were on that 24-hour flight from DC. As soon as I dropped off their bags at the hotel, I said, okay, now let's go hit golf balls and have a sandwich. And they, for dinner. And so while we're eating our sandwich and hitting golf balls, they said, so why are we eating golf balls? It's just because it makes for a productive conversation. And they didn't realize it until they figured out they couldn't hit golf balls anymore because they were too tired.
There
And I
you
said,
go.
it's interesting how this exercise is going to tell me that, I can trust that the cavalry, when it hits the ground, they can hit the ground running. When you hit the ground and you couldn't even hit golf balls. Okay.
That
So
was
it's
that
going to
was a
take
great
conversations like that and
exercise.
experiences like that
That
for
was a
them to
great
realize,
exercise.
yeah, for them to realize that, what you think is going to happen, reality is it's not.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. That was a great way to paint the picture for them and make it real. I like that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that. All right, let's transition to the final question. Um, campaigns are about promises, governing is about trade-offs. But if you all are elected, what is one difficult decision you are willing to make, even if it costs political capital, but you're going to make it
Mm.
anyway because Guam really needs it?
No, first off, the decision is going to be, you're going to expect the best from us and we're going to do our best every day. Okay. The difficult decision is when we're going to have to make the decision is going to be made. Okay. And we recognize that sometimes, I've always been taught the old premise: what's right is not always popular, and what's popular is not always right. Okay.
Absolutely.
And I always stand in the area of right. And trust me, I've had enough political experience that while I'm in the right, it wasn't popular, and yes, it did lead to my political demise in a couple of cases. But you know what? It that's my character, and it made me strong. And even at that, people still reelected me or brought me back in, because they recognized that. Well, that's if I say we're going to do this and it's for the right things, it may not be popular for you, but it's right. And down the road, you're going to see that it's right. Okay, I'm going to stick to that. And if there's
So that's the thing that
one thing that
So that's the
Mary,
thing that you would tell the voters to hold you accountable for, that you're going to choose right over popular party ideology and all of that. Right is going to be what you're going to pick every time.
yeah, and the administrations are always measured by legacies, what they leave behind. And what Mary and I want to leave behind after we're done with our administration, we want to leave behind a Guam that was much better than what it was when we came in. That's the legacy we want to leave behind. Okay, and that legacy will be uh, grounded in what is right for the people of Guam.
Standing. Dr. Okada, any thoughts on something that you'd be willing to say, hey, people of Guam, hold me accountable for this if I'm put in office?
So Speaker Blas and I are a team. And so what he explained earlier about how we are to be held accountable is you hold us both accountable for the same reason. And I believe that this teamwork that people are going to see, that Speaker and I are not afraid to roll up our sleeves and do the hard work that is necessary, whether it be in government finances, whether it be finding a way to make things more sustainable, whether it be modernizing, innovating. I think one of the things we've not been able to do or is not been able to innovate. I think we need to look at all the opportunities that exist and find how they might make work for the government of Guam a lot more efficient, much better, something to look forward to. What is it that that people want to look for in a government in Guam, and how can you provide the best customer service, because that's what people want to see. So as a
Yeah.
team, he identified what it is that we stand on, and how the public would hold us accountable to.
Yeah. Well, Speaker Blas, Dr. Okada, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Both of you all are returning guests. I appreciate you coming back on. It's good to have you all on as now a political campaign team. Um, Question for you. If people want to know more about your campaign, your platform, and your run for um, the governor's race, where can they contact you? Where can they go for more information if they want to know more or want to support?
Okay, well, I'll start. Very simple. Blas-okada.com on the website. Okay, we have a website, blas-okada.com. You'll find us on almost every major platform. Please don't ask me, especially me, and as far as the different platforms, Rob, I trust my grandkids to be able to show me how to get through it. Okay, but we're on a lot of the major. I mean, I know that we're on Instagram and Facebook, and I forgot. I think X. I'm not Twitter. But we try to be as accessible as possible. Our headquarters is located in East Agania, the former Linda's Cafe. No, we don't serve fried rice and eggs there anymore. Okay, but that's where our headquarters is at. And please follow us, and please like us. I want you to point out this one interesting note, and I hope that you saw this. Okay, as Mary had stated, she and I are running this as a partnership. We're a team. Okay. Yes, I'm running for governor. She's running for lieutenant governor. But what you should expect is a team that's running together, and for good purposes. Like I said, is that we're going to base ourselves. We're going to rely on not just our expertise and our experience, but how we've been tested and the trials and tribulations that we've been able to go through. But also more importantly, is you notice that we're very comfortable with each other and being able to answer, so that we can help to complement each other. And it shows that while we have the experience, it's not a learning curve. We can do this from day one, and we can do this. That should, if as Mary had stated, should I be unavailable, should I be off island, or something a tragic was to happen with me, Guam is in capable hands with Mary Okada.
Yes.
Okay. And that's what,
Yes.
it's one of the things I want you to see, is that I have all the confidence in the world, on being able to work in a partnership with Mary to be able to provide the government for the future that Guam deserves.
All
Okay.
right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having this serious conversation about leadership, execution, workforce development, government reform, public safety, education, and Guam's future. I really appreciate it. Excuse me. Whether people agree or disagree politically, these are conversations that Guam has to have, because the challenges ahead are real, the opportunities are enormous, and the decisions we make in the next few years will shape the type of island our children will inherit. So, to my audience, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow me on all major platforms, including Substack. Don't forget to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every other Friday of each month. And remember, whether you're at work, at home, or at play, always innovate. Thank you.